tips are actually starting travel. So I think we start getting like much more like less generic questions, much more like things that it's really cool to learn about. So I do really like the kind of question. Hey guys. Hey, how are you guys doing today? Welcome to another one of, I think it's live session 16, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Welcome to another one of our awesome live sessions where we take the time to answer all your questions about traveling in New Zealand.
Yes, that's right. So if we are meeting for the first time, this is Robin and I am Laura, and we are the team behind BackpackerGuide.NZ, which is New Zealand's largest travel guide. So if you have any questions about traveling in New Zealand, if you're thinking about which destination to go to, what activities to do, and all those little nitty-gritty questions about visas, maybe flights, seasons, all that sort of thing, we have it all on BackpackerGuide.NZ. But, you know, if you can't be bothered scrolling the website, which we totally get, we also do these live sessions every single Sunday at 8 a.m. New Zealand time for you guys to ask any questions about traveling in New Zealand. And you can ask us on the live chats, just pop in your question there and we will get to it as soon as possible. All throughout the week, you can send us questions through our various different social media channels. For instance, you can go onto the comments of any of our videos on YouTube and type in your question. You can also send us a message on Backpacker Guide NZ Facebook page. You can also send us a private message on Instagram at BackpackerGuide.NZ. You can also mention us on Twitter at BPK Guide.
BPK
Guide.
Yes.
And you can also, where else are we? Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I think that's enough. That's enough. So, like I said, every single Sunday at 8 a.m. New Zealand time, we do this live Q&A session for traveling in New Zealand. And where is that in the rest of the world? Well, that is on a Saturday at 2 p.m. EST in the US. That's also 11 a.m. PST in the US. In UK and France, basically Europe area, that's around 7 p.m. on a Saturday evening, and in India, that's around 12:30 a.m. on a Sunday morning.
Yep, that's a lot of times to go through. Anyway, welcome everybody. Good morning, the Engineer 77. We're glad to have you here for the first time. It's pretty fun to hang out here, I have to be honest. You're probably going to like it. I mean, we hope you're going to like it.
We're probably going to like it.
And
very confident, Robin.
Confident, you will like it. And good morning, Diction. How are you doing? All right, if you guys are cool with that, we're going to be starting with some questions that we received previously. So as Laura mentioned, we do receive questions all the time on a ton of different channels and everything. And I think there is one question I really wanted to start with. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And that was from Ben Holmes, and he's asking about the glowworms. So on Facebook, Ben Holmes sent me a message and said, hey, we are not going to the Waitomo caves during our trip to New Zealand. What is the next best place to see glowworms? All right.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really cool question first, because everybody thinks like glowworms, Waitomo.
Yeah, exactly.
Glowworms, Waitomo. So yes, Waitomo is probably the most popular places to go see the glowworms, and there is a lot of different experiences that you can have. And the reason why I'm going to go through those experiences is because a lot of other places we're going to mention are only going to have one or the other of the experiences. So to see the glowworms in Waitomo, you can go onto just a tour, which is kind of a cave tour. You go around the caves, you walk around with a guide that tell you the local legends surrounding the cave. They tell you also about the life cycle of the glowworms, about all the different features you see on the cave. And then you go in a very dark cave where you see this constellation of glowworms. There is one part where you go on a boat, and on that boat, while you move around the very dark cave, your guide will be singing local Maori songs, as well as telling you a little bit more about what you're seeing, which are those constellation of amazing glowworms. And the other way to see the glowworms is to do black water rafting, which is kind of caving. You go through a massive cave network, you climb waterfall, you jump waterfall, you squeeze your way through narrow passages and all of that. And alongside the way, you're going to get to see some glowworms as well. So that's the two kind of way to get to see glowworms in Waitomo, and they're both really awesome. Obviously, we have preferences, like we're a bit more adventurous. So I think the both of us will say we prefer the crazy black water rafting.
Yeah.
But there is different experiences. Now, with that in mind, Waitomo is not the only place where you can see the glowworms in New Zealand. And Laura, do you want to get us through a few of the places you can see glowworms?
Yeah, sure. So probably the next famous place to go see glowworms in New Zealand is in the South Island in a little town called Te Anau, which is actually just on the way to Milford Sound. So why not go see the glowworms as well? So in Te Anau, they have the Te Anau Glowworm Caves. That's just what they're called. And you can join a tour where you jump on a boat and it takes you across Lake Te Anau, where there's a little bit of a cave network at the other side. And in there, you get to do a walking tour through the caves, seeing a few awesome formations of the caves along the way and getting some close-up views of the glowworms before actually going into a little boat to float around a really small pool where it's pitch black, and right above you are loads of glowworms. So that's quite similar to the walking tours in Waitomo, and actually going on the boat as well. So that's another really awesome option in the South Island.
Yeah, so another great place to go see the glowworms on the North Island, actually, this one is Lake McLaren. So that's really close of the town to the town of Tauranga. And it's another night experience, but this one includes kayaking as well, which is quite cool.
Yeah, can you pass me the list?
Oh, I thought you could talk about this one because we've done a video about it.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys can check. So basically, this is an evening tour. So you start, you have a little bit of a lunch. So we have a dinner, snacks. Then everybody goes onto kayaks. This is 2 people kayak. So if you go with a friend or with your partner, it's really cool to go together. And then you go and you kayak your way across the lake. It's about, like I say, about 20 minutes kayaking. No, it's really short. Yeah. And then you arrive in the middle of a beautiful canyon. Now, in this canyon, as soon as it becomes dark, there is a lot of glowworms all around. So you're basically kayaking yourself under a sea of glowworm. It's quite exceptional. It's quite cool. And it's a great way to see those glowworms for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so
next one.
I was just going to say, so for both those experiences, we have actually got videos on what those experiences are like. So make sure to check out in the description after this video to see, to compare those activities. So another option is in the South Island again at the Paparoa National Park, and near the town of Charleston, there's a glowworm cave tour, very similar to the blackwater rafting and tubing that you can do in Waitomo. But yeah, you can actually do this in the South Island, basically doing blackwater rafting. Yeah. And so that does mix some caving and adventure, also with seeing glowworms. So that's a really awesome place and another alternative to go and see more glowworms. But again, on the North Island, if you're looking for somewhere else to see glowworms, you can go to the Bay of Islands to a place called the Kawiti Caves. And this is another walking tour. It's quite a short walking tour, but it is a really amazing cave with absolutely loads of glowworms to see. And this is also a Maori tour, so you actually get a bit of that cultural element with it as well. You get to hear about some of the local Maori legends surrounding the caves, and also get to learn all about the life cycle of the glowworms and all that good stuff as well.
The next place where you can see the glowworms in New Zealand is on Lake Karapiro, which is again on the North Island. You notice a trend right here. There is a few more places where you can see the glowworms on the North Island. So Lake Karapiro is really cool, very similar to what I was talking about Lake McLaren. You basically jump on the kayak and you kayak across the lake, and then you arrive in the canyon where you get to see the glowworms. Now, the slight difference is that the lake is slightly bit bigger, so you're going to get more kayaking. Weirdly enough, there's a bit of current in the lake, so you kind of have you kayaking against the current at the beginning. It's quite cool. I personally really like the way back because you kind of kayak in the dark on the massive lake. It's very eerie as a feeling for sure. And so with this one, so you go through the canyon actually while it is still daylight, and then you stop at a small kind of anchoring area, basically in the middle of the canyon. You hop off the boat, the kayak. You usually have a bit of a snack and you wait for it to be dark, and then you float your way out of the canyon. So this is where the current is really handy because you don't have to paddle. You float your way through the canyon and seeing the glowworms, and then make your way across the lake. So now in Lake Karapiro, you will see a little bit less glowworms than in Lake McLaren, that's for sure. But the experience is really cool as well. So it's another really great place to go see the glowworms on the North Island of New Zealand.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go for one final place to see the glowworms. Obviously, there's absolutely loads of places, and we will be linking up to a few articles listing all those places. But the final one to note is actually a free glowworm cave. So it's like a cave which anyone can access. It's on a public walking track. And this is the Waipu Caves, just south of Whangarei in the Northland region of the North Island. And here there's a little walking track to get to the caves, and then pretty much straight away, if you look up, you can see little clusters of glowworms in the really dark areas of the caves. So that's another really awesome option. And yeah, there's actually quite a lot of places where you can just see glowworms for free. So there's loads of different options.
So now what we're going to do for you guys is that we're actually going to be putting some links in the description below with heaps of articles about the glowworms in New Zealand, including all those locations, a little bit more information on how to get there. So the links are going to be in the description below. And on top of that, we've been to a lot of those places and we have a lot of videos about those. So we'll put a few cheeky links to some extra videos because they're definitely worth watching. In the meantime, we'll get back to the live chat.
Yeah.
All right, cool. There's plenty more people that show up. Jack Camp, good morning, my friend. How are you doing? He says, what can you do for one day in the South Island? There is no broader question ever. Well, for one day in the South Island, here's what you can do. You could go on a brewery tour in Nelson. Why not?
You could also maybe spend a day planning your next trip to the South Island, which you'll probably go for a longer amount of time. Maybe ponder like your life decisions and choices. Like, why did I only choose one day?
Yeah. So maybe Jack, give us a bit more context on where you're going to be on the South Island and what you want to do for that day, and then we can give you some suggestion. Because we don't know many milkshake places on the South Island. As you're asking, I don't know what that is. Michael, hello, how are you? Shaka hand. Oibaf, how are you doing? New haircut? Yes, Laura got a new haircut. And
Robin
so have
got
I.
a new haircut.
Yeah, so thank you for noticing.
I like how people always notice haircut.
Maybe it just looks really awful. That's
I guess it gets to a point where it starts to look like a dead possum on your head and on my head too. I'm not just saying you.
So Rugby Lover 81, good morning. That's been a while. No, actually, that wasn't you were here last week. So you're asking about 3 of the hike that you want to do, and you're traveling by yourself, and you want to know if they're safe. They definitely are. The Department of Conservation has markers everywhere. They usually, on top of it, Dawson Falls, Wilkes Pool, and Karangaheke Gorge are all very, very easy to do. I mean, Karangaheke is a family walk. And to be fair, Dawson Falls and Wilkes Pools, you have video, you can watch video on this channel of us doing it with actually a bunch of kids.
Yeah, we actually do. And they're very short walks as well. So, it gets more into the more dangerous elements if you go on multi-day hikes and you need to let someone know where you're going and stuff. But on these short walks that you're mentioning right here, they are definitely safe to do alone. And especially at Karangaheke Gorge, that is a very popular area.
There's so many people there.
So there's always going to be people around. So there's nothing to worry about with any of those walks.
I'm sorry, I don't think any of those walks more than 2 hours.
No.
So no, you'll be completely fine.
Yeah.
And May is asking about the lupins. Are they still blooming now? Well,
no, I would say not really.
It's very much the end of the season now.
It's just started. Autumn's just started in New Zealand now. So the lupins bloom more towards the beginning of summer, like November and December, January. They'll be. I'm pretty sure they're long gone now. You have to wait till next year.
Yeah, there is maybe like 1 or 2 that is left. The good thing with the lupins is that there is always 1 or 2 which actually are
holding on.
Yeah, they're holding on. So even if you go like no joke, even if you go like 2 months from now, you're gonna see 1 flower which is there. You can still take a picture which looks like for Eric if you kind of zoom on it and you have the lake in the background. It's really cool. I like the fact that there's always this 1 cheat lupin. May is also asking about the difference stargazing in Tekapo and Queenstown. Honestly, the stars are the same, right? Let's be honest. You just have a slight difference on light pollution. But if you go to places in Queenstown when you have very low light pollutions, like let's say on top of the mount or somewhere like that, you're going to have some amazing experiences.
Yeah, and they have for the stargazing in Queenstown, they also have high tech telescopes, not as high tech as what they have in Tekapo. They have like the university big dome dome telescopes, which they don't have in Queenstown, but they still have really good telescopes to have access to. So you will still see some really good things if you go on the stargazing tour in Queenstown. But it also obviously depends on the weather. So if you've got bad weather coming up in Queenstown where it's going to be overcast and cloudy, you won't be able to do stargazing. So maybe that's when you want to consider, before I get to Queenstown, I'll do Tekapo. Yeah.
And Rugby Lover say that she wasn't really too worried about the actual work, but being a female on my own. But have you watched Laura's video about solo female travel? She actually made a whole video by herself about that, and I think it's going to give you a lot of information about that, so you'll be completely sweet.
Yeah, I've done loads of walks by myself in New Zealand and never had to worry. It's as safe as anywhere.
Yeah, I do leave Laura behind all the time, so she always finished the walk on it by herself, and she's always fine. Aside from the creepy French guy filming her from between the trees to make a video for you guys, but that's another problem. Anyway, all right, guys. While you are writing a few more questions for us, we're going to go for another question that we did receive previously, and this one was on Instagram. And this question is about the best time for traveling in New Zealand. So on Instagram, Rachel Lovelacy asked, "Hi, I've been watching your video on the weather in New Zealand, and I'm looking to visit in late May, June, early July from the UK. I was wondering if you recommend this time of the year, even though I know you say there are 4 seasons in one day at any time of the year. I'm thinking it may be better to wait and go in the summer, but it will mean I need to wait until after I have finished uni in 4 years. Hell no. Also, what sort of time frame would you recommend? I was thinking 5 to 6 weeks. Hope you can help. Thanks."
That was a long question.
Yeah. All right. So Rachel Lovelace. I'm going to call you Rachel. Okay. Yeah. So Rachel, you're asking about basically the best time for traveling in New Zealand. The first thing is the best time for traveling in New Zealand is now. Don't wait 4 years. It's absolutely nonsense.
Yeah.
There is a lot of things changing in New Zealand. The glaciers are receding, and every year it feels like there's a little bit less wildlife because of human interaction and all of that. So you want to come to New Zealand right now for sure. Now, obviously, there are different seasons in New Zealand, but I think the most important thing that you need to keep in mind is about tourist seasons. So what are the tourist seasons in New Zealand?
So the peak season in New Zealand, meaning the busiest season, the high season, the season that everyone wants to come to New Zealand, is during the New Zealand summer, which runs between December to February. But the actual busyness of the season actually goes into March. That's the peak season. There's also shoulder seasons in New Zealand where it's kind of in between the high and the low season. And that's between March and June. So the season going into winter, and between September and November. So that's more around springtime. So that's where you'll get probably a little bit more favorable weather, but it's not too crowded. And then finally, the off season, otherwise known as the low season or the quiet season, that is between June and August, which is the winter season in New Zealand. So do you want to go through the seasons?
So now what we're going to do, we're going to go through every seasons for New Zealand, and we'll tell you basically what are the kind of the pros and cons of traveling within those seasons. So first up is summer, and that's December, January, February, if I'm correct. Sometimes I do mistakes, but yeah, I'm correct. Right. Okay. So the pros of traveling in summer, obviously, it is the best weather. You're going to get good weather between 15 to 25 degrees Celsius. I have no idea what it is in Fahrenheit. But yeah, so you're going to get kind of the best kind of weather at this time of the year. That's for sure. And also another pros of traveling in summer is that you're going to have everything open. So New Zealand is still a relatively small country with a lot of relatively small towns. So there is going to be a lot of places that kind of close during the winter, for example, just because they don't have as much business. So that everything is open at this time of the year. So that's kind of the obvious kind of two pros of traveling in summer. Now the cons of traveling in summer, and for me and for actually us, they outweigh the pros, right? But the cons are the fact that there is much more people. It's the high point of the tourism season in New Zealand. This is when you have the most tourists. This is when the tours are the most crowded. This is where the holiday parks are the most crowded. This is where the hotel are a bit the more crowded. So you can definitely feel it's heaving in New Zealand. The other thing is that it's much more expensive to travel in New Zealand at this time of the the year because all the prices are at their highest. Especially when we think about accommodation or car and camper van rentals, the price can, sometimes be multiplied by 10. We have seen camper van, being dropping in summer, being about $200, while in winter there would be 20 per day. It's quite incredible. So you've got to work that into your budget. And another con is that you need to book more things in advance. So you're much more tied to, you have to stick to your itinerary, you have to do your own, this thing. And you never really have this feeling of like, I'm alone in the middle of the New Zealand wilderness. So that's basically why summer is not necessarily our favorite time of the year to travel in New Zealand. Spoiler alert, it's going to be spring and autumn. But let's...
oh my God, damn.
But let's move on to the next season, which is going to be autumn. Go for it, Laura.
So autumn in New Zealand is between March and May. And this is a pretty good time, in our opinion, to travel in New Zealand because the weather's still pretty good. It's usually around 11 to 20 degrees Celsius and still pretty consistent. So you're not getting like a crazy amount of change in weather. It's usually like, the same sort of weather for a couple of days and then it changes. So so you can maybe predict the weather a little bit more compared to winter, and it's still warm enough after summer. This also means that the crowds are dying down a little bit because that obviously we've gone out of the peak season and we're now in the shoulder season in New Zealand. So that means that, the walking trails are a little bit quieter and it's just a little bit more pleasant when you're visiting some of the free or natural attractions around New Zealand. And also, some of the autumn colours are starting to come out. So there's some really famous places around New Zealand like Wanaka and in the Otago, well, that is the Otago region, but around the Otago region, there's a lot of trees with autumn colours. Hawke's Bay as well, they get really like autumny grasslands and stuff. So it's a good season to see some sort of different landscapes in New Zealand, which is really awesome. I'm just going to see if there's anything I missed from that. So obviously because it's getting out of the peak season, that means that some of the prices for like camper van rentals and accommodations, they start to be a little bit more affordable. So it's a good time to come to save some money. And just thinking about disadvantages, sorry, my memory is not as good as yours, Robin.
The weather is slightly bit cooler. That's for sure in autumn. You start getting a little bit more rain. So it's a little bit more unpredictable. That's what it is. But I feel like it is still extremely manageable. And if I were to pick another disadvantage, I think I would go for the prices. I think that the prices are much lower than what it is in summer for sure, but they're not as low as it would be in winter. So you kind of like, should I have waited an extra month and get, even cheaper prices? So it's kind of like, this is kind of where you stand. Also the days are getting shorter as well. So, and the nights get a little bit chillier. So that's maybe if you're in a camper van or if you're camping or anything, it's not as comfortable as it would be in summer, for instance. And also that peak season is actually getting longer and it is creeping into March and even April. So even sometimes when you think it is going to be quiet in some places, it does end up being quite busy. So like each year there's more and more tourists coming to New Zealand, so it's getting a little less easy to predict whether it's going to be busy or not. All right. So we're moving on to winter. So traveling in winter, spoiler alert, I do really like it, but it's not ideal, but I do really like it. So now the main point of traveling in New Zealand in winter is that you start getting some snow. You get plenty of snows all around the South Island. It's really awesome. If you're into ski fields, obviously, and skiing, you're going to have a blast over there. Some of the best ski fields in the country include Coronet Peak, the Remarkables, Mount Ruapehu, Treble Cone. So you got some really awesome places where you can go skiing, snowboarding, and enjoying all that goodness. Another awesome good thing about traveling in winter is that the prices of everything are at their lowest, aside from actually if you want to be in Queenstown, because this is where all the ski buffs are spending time in. So you're going to get really cheap as camper van rental. It goes as low as $19 a day, which is absolutely epic. All the accommodations are going to be really cheap. And also, because it is the low tourist season, you're going to have no one else around, which is really awesome. I do really like traveling in New Zealand in winter because I get to do twice more that I can do in summer. Now, obviously, there are some disadvantages. The first disadvantage, and I know it's not the main one, but the first disadvantage that I will think of is that the fact that you have to pack so much more. You have to pack some extra layers. You have, like traveling in winter requires basically a slightly bit bigger backpack. For that reason, well, you need to plan a little bit more ahead. Speaking of planning ahead, a really good pro for traveling winter, you don't have to plan ahead because nothing is fully booked, so you get it all for yourself. Anyway, get back to the con of traveling in winter. The days are much shorter because obviously it's winter, so instead of having 13 hours of daylight that you're going to be enjoying and exploring amazing New Zealand, you're going to be reduced to like 10 or 9, and no, it's just not enough time. But that's basically one of the cons. Another con is the weather. Obviously, this is going to be when you're going to have the most rain, when it's going to be the coldest. But honestly, this is nothing that a rain jacket can stop. And the cold is really not that bad. A couple of merino wool layers and you'll be completely sweet with that. And you've seen us traveling 365 days around New Zealand in only 365 days. Doing 365 activities. Sorry about that. So we actually did manage to do activities even in winter. We didn't cheat. Honestly, we didn't stop. So this literally is 365 consecutive days doing 365 activities. And we did that every single day. Nothing stopped us. Not the rain, not the snow and everything. And honestly, it wasn't too much of a hassle. It was absolutely awesome.
And someone just mentioned there's no mosquitoes in winter. So
that's a good one. Yeah. No mosquitoes in winter. Perfect.
No sandflies.
The dreaded sandflies are not there in winter. And lastly, but not least, one of the cons of traveling in winter is that driving is maybe a little bit more scary, just because you may have some icy roads, the visibility because of fog or rain or snow may be a bit more scary. So you just have to be a little bit more careful. Honestly, I personally don't see that as a con because we are pretty careful drivers anyway. Yeah. But yeah, it's a tiny con that you may have. So yeah, traveling in winter, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, moving on to spring.
So finally, the second shoulder season in New Zealand is in spring, which is between September to November. And this is where, it starts to get a little bit warmer again, as spring is, that's what happens in spring. And the temperature will be somewhere between 7 degrees Celsius to 19 degrees. So it's getting more comfortable. And again, this is a pretty quiet time to travel in New Zealand, especially if you're more closer to September and November. That's like a really good time to September. Oh, there's October in there as well. Yeah,
just do that month as well.
Yeah, just it's a bit quieter. So yeah, but also personally, I feel like this is actually the best time to go to the ski fields in New Zealand because the winter's gone. All the ski fields have their base of snow, and then you get to have all those lovely sunny days up on the mountain skiing and snowboarding. So personally, I feel like spring is the best time to go and do those like winter sport activities in New Zealand. So that's in September, and then in the North Island, it finishes in October. So also because it is a quieter time, it's less likely to have accommodation and rentals fully booked. You can be a little bit more spontaneous when you're traveling around. You don't need to necessarily book all your activities way in advance. You can maybe, check out the weather and stuff, see what it's doing before you book your activity. So that gives you a little bit more freedom in that respect. And also, in terms of the landscape, it's a pretty nice time to travel New Zealand as well, to see the flowers in bloom. But someone was just asking before about the lupins in Tekapo. They start to bloom around November, so that's in the springtime, for instance. There's lots of really nice gardens in the cities and stuff around New Zealand. So if you're into all that sort of stuff, that's a good time to come to New Zealand. And also the wildlife is a lot more abundant in spring. New Zealand is really known for its birds. So if you're out in the forest, you'll see a lot more lively activity when you're looking at birds and stuff. And very quickly, some disadvantages to spring is that the weather might be a little bit inconsistent, as it would be in winter. Usually, the 4 seasons in one day really happens during this time of the year in spring. And also, there are a little less events going on. Summertime in New Zealand is where you'll find all the festivals and, outdoors events and things.
All the markets as well.
Yeah. But there's a little bit less of that going on in spring.
Yeah. All right. So just to recap, recap, because I know that sometimes it can get a little bit confusing, I'm going to give you the months. So again, summer is December to February. Then after autumn is March to May, winter is June to August, and September is November. Sorry, spring is September to November. Now, all of those information right here is just to help you find which one of the pros and cons that you weigh the most. But for us, Rachel, I think that you should be traveling in New Zealand as soon as you can, no matter the season. You'll have a blast. We did, and we still do, and it's really awesome. So that's basically it.
Absolutely.
Anyway, let's get back to the live chat. Steve Boy, good morning. How are you doing? May is asking that she wants to go to Stuart Island next week. Does she go there by car or by bus?
Well, you need to take a ferry to get to Stuart Island, so which I assume you already know that. So obviously renting a car, and then you would have to. You can rent a car over in Stuart Island if that's what you're meaning, but there's not really much reason to do that because there's very limited roads and there's plenty of transport to get you to the highlights, like the walks and the Rakiura National Park, for instance.
Ulva Island is by boat.
And by boat, taking a bus, there are some. If you do the bottom bus tour with Kiwi Experience, for instance, they sometimes include trips to Stuart Island, but that depends on which customers are in the bus and who wants to go to Stuart Island. But in terms of if you're wanting to look for a social experience in Stuart Island, take the ferry to Stuart Island and stay in maybe one of the backpacker hostels where there's lots of other people there and it is a very social vibe. So that would be like that sort of aspect of the bus. But I'm not really sure where, because Stuart Island, has very limited transport on there. I'm not really sure what your question is directed at.
All right, cool. So the engineer was saying there's no mosquito in which I really like the guy that you guys, while we're giving you answers, you kind of give us some input. I really do like it. Someone was asking about the best ski resort in New Zealand. If that was Oibach. If you noticed, I did answer your question sneakily. I did put it through my answer about this, so you got it. Indigo Fella is asking if you can get marijuana in New Zealand. So I think weed is still illegal in New Zealand. I am pretty sure it still is. But like most countries, there's a lot of talk about legalization and everything like that. So it is still illegal in New Zealand. So the flat and point blank answer is no at the moment, but maybe later on. And Princey Daniel is asking for suggestion for accommodation in Nelson. There's quite a few good hostels in Nelson. Which one's your favorite?
Oh, there's so many. Paradiso is really cool. That's really got an outdoor swimming pool, which is like...
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's very different. But honestly, in Nelson, all the accommodations really do work hard to compete for customers. They're really
one of them
good
has
at that.
chocolate pudding every night.
The Tasman Bay Backpackers, we actually did stay there during our 365 days of 365 activities in New Zealand. Well, the playlist for that is in the description. But anyway, they have chocolate pudding every single night. They have free breakfast every morning, and it's just a really cool hostel to hang out in anyway. It's got a nice garden area out the front. But we have a whole article on BackpackerGuide.NZ listing like the 10 best hostels in Nelson, and all of them have really awesome points to each one of them. So make sure you go check it out.
All right, cool. We are going to be taking the next question right now. Amy Lambert, we are going to be doing your question next, okay? We just have one question to go first, and then we'll take your question, and we'll go in depth about the Tongariro circuit because, well, it's an awesome hike.
It's a Tongariro crossing she's asking about.
Tongariro crossing. Yeah, so we'll answer your question very shortly. Anyway, in the meantime, we are going to go with a question from YouTube by Adventurero42. What is the cheapest city to fly in New Zealand? I'm planning to do my working holiday visa there in January 2020, but I would like to save some money on the plane ticket. Greetings from Mexico. All right, so what is the best place to fly to in New Zealand? First, where are the international airports in New Zealand? Because you'll be surprised, there is either really not that many or a little bit more than what you thought about. So it's a weird number.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, most people know that Auckland is the biggest international airport in New Zealand, but there are some other international airports. The second biggest is Christchurch, which is on the South Island. And then after that, you can also fly into Queenstown, Wellington, and Dunedin. But the first thing to know really about saving money on flights to New Zealand is it's more dependent on your departure city rather than where you're arriving in New Zealand. So, for instance, you are in Mexico. So consider maybe some of the different US airports that you can fly to New Zealand. For instance, LA is really well connected to New Zealand. There's multiple different flights that you can take from there. So that, for instance, might be a way of saving money. It's always just checking different routes, not necessarily like the nearest airport to where you live to like Auckland. It's not necessarily going to be the cheapest way of doing things. But getting back to the international airports of New Zealand, there's not necessarily a cheaper airport to get to, but like I said, it really depends on the route. So in Auckland, this has the biggest sort of amount of international connections. So you'll be able to fly from the most places around the world and get to Auckland Airport. And closely after that is Christchurch as well. That has quite a lot of flights to Christchurch in the South Island. And then the other international airports in New Zealand, they mainly have flights from Australia. So maybe think about connecting flights to Australia before coming to New Zealand, checking out that route to see if there's any cheap deals that you can get. So you can fly to Australia from Auckland, you can fly from Australia into Auckland, Christchurch, Wellington, Queenstown, and Dunedin.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Now, about determining which one is going to be the cheapest airport to fly to, this is when it becomes really tricky. So the first thing that comes to mind is that Auckland is going to have the highest amount of flight into it. So obviously, it's going to be a little bit more competition. And then therefore, the prices are going to be lower. For almost every kind of case, you're going to find that Auckland is going to be the slightly bit cheapest. However, it really depends on where you want to go to. Let's say you want to go to Queenstown, right? Maybe flying down to Queenstown is going to be straight away, even if the flight is $200 more, maybe smarter. Hear me out. Let's say you decide that you're going to be flying to Auckland, and then you go on a local website like Jetstar or Grab a Seat where you can get local flights. Now, they advertise flights to Queenstown, for example, from Auckland at up to like about $59, which is rather cheap, right?
Yeah.
However, that is not going to mean that your flight to Auckland per $60 is going to get you to Queenstown, because your flight may just not align properly. And at that point, you need to get yourself transportation from the Auckland airport to an accommodation in Auckland, spend one night in Auckland, then the transportation from your accommodation down to Auckland airport, and then you fly down to Queenstown. That adds a lot of money onto your budget. So you need to make sure that when you start doing this combination, you will be able to, the total cost of it will actually be the cheapest. Because yes, one of the best tricks to actually get a cheap flight to wherever you want to go to in New Zealand is to book the second leg yourself. So you fly to Auckland or to Christchurch, which are the two biggest airports where you're usually going to find the cheapest flight. And then from there, you're going to be trying to make your way to Queenstown or to Wellington or to any of the other regional airports from there. Now, so you've got to keep that in mind. It's so important to actually think about the overall cost. I've seen so many times people that says, oh yeah, I got myself a $60 flight from Queenstown. Then I just ask, oh yeah, cool, did it work and everything? They're like, oh, I had to stay in town and everything. So how much did you spend on transportation? This and that. They're like, oh shit, I spent $350. Well, you could have spent extra like $200 and fly directly there. So you need to keep that in mind for sure. Now, the other major factors on getting a cheap deal from your flight is also your airport of departure. Did you already cover that?
Yeah, I already.
Yeah, okay, cool. So that's really important to keep that in mind. And actually, you use different airport of departure for different arrival as well. Because, for example, if I'm correct, if you are going from Brisbane to Queenstown rather than from Sydney to Queenstown, the flight from Brisbane to Queenstown are much cheaper. So you've got to keep that in mind as well, because the airport of departure means also where you're going to be doing your leg from as well. So you want to keep that in mind as well. So now, obviously, there are plenty of good websites for you to be able to check all those prices. So for regional flight, usually it's going to be Jetstar and Grab a Seat. But you can also check Skyscanner. They basically scan like all the different options and flight and everything, and they kind of do most of the work for you. And then you have a million pop-up that opens and like, it's overwhelming. But it's a good way to start your research. You get all of those. So we'll put a link in the description below for that, because it does work very well for you to get an understanding of what will be the cheapest price. So what I usually do, I do go on Skyscanner and I type like 20 or 30, sorry, not 20, 2 or 3 different kind of routes, from where and to where, and I see what works for us, because obviously, it's just so much easier to have like an aggregator that checks everything for you rather than do everything manually, because we've seen so many people spending so much time trying to get that. So that's my last point, is your time spent as well. I personally never ever go for the cheapest flight, for a simple reason. Every single time I look at the cheapest flight, it has 3 legs, a 12-hour layover, and to me, that's not worth the price.
Yeah.
Honestly, I rather spend $200 rather than having an 8-hour layover in an airport. It is awful.
You will then have to pay for a hotel anyway.
And you have to pay for a hotel. You're spending some money at the airport because you're going to want some food or some this or some that. You are going to be absolutely exhausted. You're going to lose at least 3 days of your trip. And like the most the craziest, like I always try to find flights which are as direct as possible. For New Zealand, it usually means you have one stopover. You have to have one. But, make the stopover small. It takes a physical tool on your body to fly to New Zealand. And I think it's absolutely ludicrous to try to save a few $100s at the expense of your health. It has been proven many times that flying is actually not good for your health. So you want to make it as easy as possible on your body. So keep that in mind. The only way we fly usually is as fast as we can. And it doesn't mean like a flight at $3,000, right? It's literally the difference is at most like $200. Or sometimes we try to get a longer layover, so kind of like, can we get 3 days somewhere? And then you get to explore somewhere, and then it can get you a bit more flexibility, and it makes the flight easier actually to do that. So the cheapest airport to fly in New Zealand, to recap, that's usually going to be Auckland and Christchurch. So you're going to want to look in between those two ones, but make sure that you check where you're departing from and try to give a couple of different options. For example, if you guys are watching and you're from Europe, I know you are from Mexico, but if someone is from Europe, taking a train, for example, can be so much easier. Like if you are, if you are, for example, let's say in Italy, taking a train to Frankfurt or to Paris may help you shave $300 on the flight, and the train ticket is going to cost you $80. So that's definitely worth doing. So keep that in mind, check those things, and seriously, $100 to $200 extra to actually get a flight that is 8 to 10 hours shorter is definitely worth it.
So we will link to a few articles giving you more tips on how to save money on flights in the description when we do the rebroadcast of this video, so make sure to check it out. But if you do have any more questions, make sure you put it in the live chat right now, or otherwise put it in the comments below, and we'll add it to our pool for the next week when we do this live session again.
Cool. All right, guys. So the next question is going to be about the Tongariro crossing, which is from Amy. So we're going to go through your question quickly. Just seeing that D-Raj Sharma is asking about Franz Josef or Mount Cook. What is our choice?
Our choice.
I pick Mount Cook because you get to explore Mount Cook, but you also have a massive glacier to hike on, which is the Tasman Glacier, the largest glacier in New Zealand. So if I have to pick something, I pick Mount Cook. Do you pick?
Well, yeah, it's a tough one, but I actually also pick Mount Cook as well, because usually it has better weather over there, and they also do flights across to Franz Josef, so you can still see Franz Josef from Mount Cook, and usually it's a little quieter there, and I prefer it when it's quieter, like a little bit less people, but only marginally.
Daniel, if you are going to Christchurch with your girlfriend for the Easter weekend, I think you should go to the Akaroa, which is in the Banks Peninsula. You get some amazing wildlife, and that's our favorite thing to do in Christchurch, hands down, no question. Get there, do that, you're gonna have fun. Anyway, now on the live chat we have Amy Lambert, which says, hey guys, love your video. I'm going to New Zealand in November and I really want to do the Tongariro crossing, but I'm a bit worried about what level of fitness is needed to survive. All right, so we're going to give you a few information about the Tongariro crossing because this comes up all the time, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to do that. The first thing that to note is that there is a lot of people that do the Tongariro crossing, a lot of them of all kind of level of fitness and preparation, and most of them survive, right? The casualty is above 50%, so it's below 50%, so we don't lose more than half people. No, I'm joking. There is only a few injuries a year, so it's still quite safe. So first thing first, for the Tongariro crossing, more than your level of fitness, the thing that I will worry the most about is having the right thing packed. Honestly, you can take it as slow as you want, right? We've actually have met some people that took over 10 hours to do it, while we've met some people that literally only took 5 hours to do it. And actually, we met some people that done it much faster because some crazy people run this thing. Don't get me started on that. I think they're insane. But yeah, so you get every different type of fitness. We don't consider ourselves like super fit and everything like that. But even while filming and doing the whole thing, when we did our video about the Tongariro crossing, it still took us only 6.5 hours. Is that correct? Yeah. So that was totally fine. But so the first thing that I want to mention is that you can definitely do it at almost any kind of fitness level. So you don't need to be too worried about that. The thing that you need to be worried about is to get the right thing packed for yourself. Laura, do you want to go through that?
Yeah, so first of all, you need to take plenty of water with you because you won't be able to fill up any water bottles on the way during the Tongariro crossing. So the usual recommendation is 3 liters, I think, for the whole day, which is usually fine for November. But if you were, for instance, hiking the Tongariro crossing in summer, and when you're completely exposed on the mountaintops, it's an alpine environment, so the sun is a lot more intense, and there's no shade. That's
like
when
no shade at all until the last 20 minutes of the hike.
Yeah, so that's when you would need to take more than 3 liters of water. But in your case for November, 3 liters of water is a good amount. It will feel heavy in your backpack to start with, but it's definitely worth it, and you will probably get through all of that.
Yeah.
So on top of that, you also need to take some lunch because this is on average an 8-hour hike. It takes all day to do, so you'll need to have take some lunch with you, take some snacks to keep you going, all that sort of stuff. And it's always best to take a little bit extra. It's always better to over prepare than under prepare. So in terms of clothes and stuff like that, again, you're going to be in an alpine environment. So it's really important to have layers, to have a jacket, but importantly to have a rain jacket as well, because the weather is ever changing up there. Usually on the Tongariro crossing, if the weather is too bad and unsafe, then the shuttle companies, because you will be needing to take the shuttle company to get to the Tongariro crossing because it's a one-way walk and you'll need transport at the beginning and the end. But usually if the weather's bad, the shuttle companies won't be taking people up onto the Tongariro crossing. But even if the forecast is for a good day on the crossing, it can still change. So it's really worth taking a rain jacket, even to block the wind from you, because sometimes you can get really windy up there and cold, but also take extra layers like some extra like merino wool layers, just another jacket to put on top. Also maybe some, like in November, it can still be quite cold. So maybe some like hiking pants, maybe even an underlayer if you really feel the cold. So yeah, loads of options there for clothing, but just make sure that, again, you're over prepared and not under prepared. Yeah, in terms of other stuff to take in November, it's definitely worth taking sunscreen because it is starting to this is in the springtime, going into summer. It is likely to be quite sunny up there, and in alpine environments you're more likely to get sunburnt, so definitely take some sunscreen, maybe a hat to protect your head from the sun, sunglasses. Take a little bit of a personal first aid kit, so in case I don't know, you have a bit of a fall, if you graze yourself or something, just all those sort of like really basic first aid kit items is worth taking as well. Yeah. So, what else? Yeah.
All right.
So,
sorry. Are you going to do the packing list or no?
Yeah. I'm just finishing it.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah. Also, it's a good idea to have your cell phone with you. You won't have signals sort of in the middle sections of the Tongariro crossing, but when you get to the end, you might want to call your shuttle company or something. Maybe if you're running a bit late or they're a bit early. Some shuttle companies will even like come and pick you up early, for instance. So it's worth having your cell phone with you just at the end so that you can communicate with your transport provider.
All right. So now this brings to the point that you actually have to go to the Tongariro crossing in summer. I think November is when that's going to kick in. Now you have to go with a shuttle company. You can't just park your car because there are some time limitations there. So now for this reason, you're going to want to book a shuttle company. So now there is plenty of companies, right? We like Backyard Tours, for example, is a great company to book with.
Active Outdoor Adventures.
Active Outdoor Adventures is really good company as well to book with. So and obviously plenty more. But yeah, so you're gonna want to book with one of those companies, and what they're gonna do, they're gonna pick you up from Turangi or from Taupo and drive you to the hike. That is bringing the question of like, what is going to be the best accommodation to stay at when doing the Tongariro Alpine crossing. So there is two places in which you're going to be wanting to stay for that crossing, which are definitely far better than any other options. They are going to be in the town of Turangi or in the town of National Park. They are the two spots which are going to be the closest. Now, in each of those areas, there is plenty of accommodation from hotel, motel, hostel, holiday park, and everything in between, right? There's even campsites and stuff like that. So, but that's the two places in which you're going to want to base yourself to do the crossing for sure. So you base yourself in either Turangi or National Park. From there, you're going to be taking a shuttle that you need to book ahead. This shuttle is going to drop you off at the start of the hike, and then they come and pick you up at the end of the hike. That's basically how it works. Now, for the hike itself, I invite you to check out the video of us actually climbing the whole Tongariro Alpine crossing. You get the whole kind of, you get the whole overview of what it is. Literally, if you want to know exactly what it is, we go through every single section one by one. But basically, it starts a little bit flat and kind of like a nice little bushland. Then you have a really steep climb, which is called the Devil's Staircase. Honestly, not the worst staircase we've done in New Zealand, so no need to panic about it at all. You have a really nice like a ledge kind of walking, you know, where you see everywhere around, which is beautiful. Then you have a scree run down, meaning that the floor is really loose, kind of making your way down. This is where most people actually, you know, fall or tumble and everything. So if you take it really fast, usually it's a good technique, or you take it very slow, but nothing in between. It's really important to remember that. You arrive at those beautiful lakes that you see in the pictures all the time. Usually that's one of the best spots for a nice little lunch because you're almost halfway through. Then you keep on walking and you see a little bit of a hut, and then it's all downhill from there. Actually downhill, not bad, but it's all downhill from here, where you're going to start making your way kind of zigzagging on the side of the mountain, and then you finish for the last, let's say, half an hour. You're in a bit of a native forest, and you arrive at the end of the car park. So it's not a hike where you're going to get lost. No way. It's very well marked. There's heaps of people. It's not a hike that's going to challenge you too much. It will challenge you, yes, but not too much. And it's not a hike that has, you know, that you're going to feel like if something happened, no one can help me. There's heaps of people. As long as you go prepare and you follow Laura's tips on that, you're going to be totally good. And again, you know, I've even told you where to stay. So you get plenty of tips right here. We will be linking to a lot of things at the bottom of these videos, i.e. the video of us doing the crossing, i.e. or our guide about doing the Tongariro Alpine crossing, everything you need to prepare. We have really full lengthy guides in which we refer to, even during those videos, the really big guide with a lot of information. And they're really handy for you to actually prepare those kind of longer style hikes. Anything you want to add, though?
Not really. You've pretty much covered everything, I think.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Cool. All right. So any questions of your own, make sure to put them in the comment below. We're here to help every single Sunday. All right. What do we have? Oh, Amy say thank you. That's really helpful. Yeah, of course you're well prepared if you read our guide. Cool. Diraj was saying he was about to choose French Joseph, so we think maybe. It's up to you. Honestly, both places are awesome, right?
But, I mean, you asked us to choose.
But you are, so. You know what I mean? If you do ask us to choose, this is, you know, this is what we do. We choose. So yeah. All right. Cool. Should we do one more question that we received?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, cool. So the next questions that we're going to be doing is actually about packing as well. So on Facebook, we had Afid that contacted us and said, hey, I'm coming to New Zealand in about a week and I'm super stressed about forgetting something when packing my bag. Aren't we all? That is the most terrifying thing to do, packing a bag. Can you guys do a video of the absolute essentials to pack for New Zealand? You can include even the most obvious stuff because I'm super forgetful. All right.
We can do obvious.
So the very, very, very essential. So you're about to come to New Zealand and you're like, damn, I wish I have forgotten nothing. Well, here is what you absolutely need to have in your bag. And the first thing is, well, have a bag. That's pretty handy. Yeah. Backpack or suitcase, but you need one of those. You asked me to actually put the obvious stuff. I'm putting the obvious stuff right here. But yeah, so there is a lot of debate between backpack and suitcase. Laura prefers suitcase. I prefer backpack. Everybody is different.
Yeah.
So pick the bag that you like the most. But remember that this is the bag that you're going to stick with for a very long time when traveling in New Zealand. So make sure you pick the thing that you like a lot, something like that is comfortable for you to carry around, and something that you're very, very happy with, and which is sturdy enough. Don't get something cheap because it's going to break and you're going to be pissed.
Yeah, and those baggage handlers aren't exactly, nice and gentle with baggage. So
I don't even handle my own luggage gently and nicely, so I don't expect them to.
Yeah. Actually, but I think what's more important than that even is having a good day pack, because you actually do need to carry a lot of stuff when you're out and about in New Zealand. Like we've mentioned a million times on this channel about the weather changing all the time. So you're going to want to have some extra layers in your day pack, maybe have a rain jacket. And you also want to have, you're going to be carrying some essentials around like sunscreen and bottles of water, food and stuff like that. So it's always good to have a good day pack while you're traveling around New Zealand. So that's really important as well. And obviously in New Zealand, you're going to be doing a lot of hiking because that's like one of the best things to do here. There's so many free hiking trails that you can be doing, or short walking trails. So with that in mind, you're going to want to pack some good hiking shoes or a good pair of hiking boots, preferably waterproof, because like we said, the weather does change quite often. And
does the weather change often in New Zealand?
It does change really often.
Really?
4 seasons in a day.
Oh my God! How many seasons in one day?
4.
4. Wow.
4 whole seasons in one day. Wow.
So someone can say that the weather changes often in New Zealand.
Yeah, I mean, you've probably not heard that before, but the weather changes a lot, and that it does include rain.
She's gonna talk to you about a rain jacket in about a second.
Yeah.
What does you need to pack?
Yeah.
A rain jacket. No, but seriously, you absolutely need to have a rain jacket for New Zealand.
You do.
Speaking about the essentials. So yeah.
This isn't a laughing matter, Robin. You need to pack a rain jacket as well, and have that in your day pack.
So you want your rain jacket not to be too thick as well. You want something rather light so you actually can put it in and out.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna find out, because there are a certain amount of season in one day. How many? 4. I think 4 seasons in one day. Because there is 4 seasons in one day, sometimes it's going to be summer and it's going to start raining. So you don't want something too heavy either. So I personally prefer a light rain jacket and add some merino wool layers, just in case there are rain that happens in New Zealand. Because sometimes it does happen, because I've heard that what is it in New Zealand?
Shut up. Anyway, another absolute essential, which I really love, for packing in my backpack for New Zealand, is a fast drying towel. Because I made the mistake when I first came to New Zealand to pack a cotton towel, which not only takes up a lot of space in your backpack, but it also takes forever to dry. Or literally it never dries, actually. You can hang it wherever you like. Cotton towels never seem to dry when you're traveling around New Zealand, and not all accommodation provides towels for you to use, especially if you're staying in hostels or campgrounds or any like real budget accommodation. Towels is not an option, so you're going to want to bring a fast drying travel towel. So usually they're microfiber, and yeah, you can find them on Amazon and stuff like that. They're like real easy to find.
Yeah, we'll put some links down there just for you guys to know what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, they fold up really small, and they're really light. They dry fast, obviously, and
they don't smell bad as well.
And
which I really like,
exactly, because cotton towels end up smelling really bad if they never dry. So fast drying travel towel is an absolute essential.
Yeah.
Do you want to do some other ones?
Oh, no. I think you should do the next one.
Layers.
Why do we need layers when traveling in New Zealand, Laura?
Okay, so you need to pack layers because the weather is always changing in New Zealand. So merino wool layers, maybe an extra, like one warm jacket or something, especially if you're traveling in the winter months. A rain jacket we've already mentioned, but also a few light tops as well, because when the sun's out, usually that's when it's really nice and warm. But as soon as that sun goes behind a cloud, or you have like a cloudy or rainy day, usually,
like if you have forces in one day, for example,
or on a night, the temperatures can feel a lot different to when the sun's out. So it's good to have a few extra layers just for that ever-changing weather.
Yeah, cool. The next thing that you're going to want to have is, well, a reusable water bottle. The water in New Zealand is very, very available. There is water everywhere, so there is no need for you to have any, to purchase any bottle of water, right? You can use the tap, and almost every single tap in New Zealand, you can fill it up and get some water. So save the planet, get yourself a reusable water bottle. There is some really cool one that you can clip to your bag, and they are they're made of plastic, so they're foldable if they're not full and everything. So that's really cool. So make sure you have one of those. We really do love it. You see us using them all the time, and I think you definitely need to have that. It's kind of a gadget, so I'm thinking about gadget right now. I think you also need a New Zealand travel adapter. Obviously, you come from wherever you're from, because you didn't mention that on the message. But you're probably going to have different pin plugs for your appliances, for your computers, and all of that. So make sure that you have a travel adapter. This is something that a lot of people forget. And when you come here, an adapter for New Zealand from Europe is much more expensive than it needs to buy from a home. So make sure that you pack a New Zealand travel adapter. Thinking about the travel adapter, you may also want to get yourself a multi-plug. Now, a lot of people forget that, when you stay, especially in hostels or even in a hotel room, you only have like 1 or 2 plugs. It's really not that much. So what I actually used to do is I used to have my, multi-plugs, and then I had one travel adapter that I plug in it, and then I could plug all my stuff to charge right on there. You're going to be, the darling of a hostel if you show up with that, because that means you're not going to be having to fight with everybody else, and you're not going to bother everybody else by taking all their power plugs, which is quite cool. Another thing to pack is a bit of cash. Obviously, you want to have a little bit of cash on you, not to be too stranded. If you can get some New Zealand dollars from back home, get yourself like $500 in cash, so you have something to see you through. Otherwise, get yourself a currency which is very easy to exchange, like euros, US dollars, or something like that. You also want to pack in your little first aid kits. Everybody needs a bit of a first aid kit. Everybody knows what kind of pill they use the most, but you want a little bit of that. And in there, you want to put some really, really strong insect repellent, just in case you're traveling in New Zealand within those months where the sandflies are in and about.
Yeah. Also, in a similar note to that, get some insect repellent for the sandflies.
I literally just what you said. Yeah. Okay. Sunscreen. That's what you want to talk about. Sunscreen.
Yeah.
She's drunk today. Honestly, I don't think you should do breakfast vodka ever again. Oh, silly.
And so you need some sunscreen, preferably high factor sunscreen, because the sun is really intense in New Zealand. There's that pesky hole in the ozone layer, which is just above New Zealand, meaning that there's no real protection between the UV rays and your skin. So you really need to have high factor sunscreen. But also in your medication kit, you will need to obviously take any prescription medication that you take. And also to make it go through customs when you arrive in New Zealand, you need to have the prescription medication in its bottle, which shows all the information that it's prescribed to you, that it's, prescribed from a doctor and stuff like that. Even if you've got a paper note or something, just to be on the safe side, you need to prove that basically the prescription medication is prescribed to you, and you can only bring up to 3 months worth of prescription medication into New Zealand. And then after that, you are going to have to get that medication in New Zealand, which is easy to do. And we'll link up in the description below on how to actually do that in an article that we've got on BackpackerGuide.NZ.
.NZ.
And so also bearing in mind when you're coming into New Zealand as well, you're going to want to have a copy of your visa, if you do have a copy of your visa, because some of the visas are electronic with your passport. So remember your passport. Also, any paperwork, if your visa, for instance, asks for supporting evidence, if in case there's any problems at the airport, just make sure you have the paperwork which shows supporting evidence for your visa. And because there's so many different visas, we won't go through all that paperwork right now. But if you go onto the Immigration New Zealand website and you look at the visa that you have got and see what criteria you need to meet and usually what paperwork goes along with that. And the final essential to put onto your packing list are your swimwear, or togs as they're known in New Zealand. If you're traveling, it doesn't matter if you're traveling in winter or summer, there's always going to be reasons to get into the water, whether it's hot pools or going for a swim at the beach or going for a swim in a lake, in a swimming hole of a river. There's really like a lot of options to get in the water. Going whitewater rafting, for instance, or blackwater rafting, loads of different water activities to do in New Zealand. So there's always reasons to pack swimwear.
Here you go. So that is the absolute essential, the thing that you cannot forget when coming to New Zealand. You absolutely have to have those items in your bag. But we'll link to a couple of articles in the description below to help you with your packing process in New Zealand. We have all the packing list, very much more complete than those ones.
Yeah.
Also with plenty of links, especially to the microfiber towel and to even some foldable water bottles. So all of that is in the description below. And if you do have any questions of your own, make sure to put them in the comments below. All right, Joao Sabanini is asking for suggestion for half-day trip in Auckland. I'll give you one. You go to Rangitoto Island. It's absolutely awesome. You take the ferry over there. You climb a dormant volcano. There's some lava caves. There's some lava fields. There is a crater. There is a beautiful view of Auckland City and all the surrounding area. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you want to give him one?
Another place you could go to is the Hunua Ranges, which is in the south of Auckland. And there they've got an awesome waterfall, which is really easy to get to. And they also have a few short and long hikes in the forest. So depending on how much time you have in your half a day, lots of options in the Hunua Ranges.
Yeah, and Andre was asking, is it good internet, mobile internet? Is it good in New Zealand? It's all right.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not like amazing by any stretch of the mean, but it's not absolutely terrible. We did New Zealand's biggest gap year where, we did post videos and we did all the shenanigans of writing, all the website and all of that. And we did survive. It does get frustrating because it can get slow, but I think it's all right. And you get it pretty much everything. Everywhere.
So basically in all the towns and even all the villages really in New Zealand, you'll have mobile coverage. It's only when you're in really remote areas where you're probably not going to be wanting to be on mobile internet anyway, that you won't get where you won't have signal in order to do that. So like Robin said, we spent a whole year basically running our online business, our website from our mobile internet. We were using the Wi-Fi tethering through our phones in order to connect to the internet all the time. So it's definitely fast enough to do that. To upload videos.
So it works. So definitely no need to panic too much about that.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you very much, guys, for joining us this week again for another one of our live questions. We always love to have you guys on board. We always love to help you guys plan your trip. It's always good to know that Amy is going to do the Tongariro crossing, that Andre is worried about his internet, that Michael is still saying hello, shake a hand, and everything in between. We're so happy to have you guys join us, make sure to join us again next week. It's going to be exactly the same time. Now, make sure you keep in mind that some countries like France, for example, is becoming winter time or anything. So you probably are 8 p.m., not 7 p.m. So keep that in mind. But USA, 2 p.m. EST, 11 a.m. PST. UK, France, 7, 8. Do the math. It's 8 a.m. New Zealand time on Sunday. And India, it's 12:30 a.m. We are here every single week answering your questions. And if you can't make it, make sure to put the questions in the comment below of this video, in the comment of any of our videos. We are here to help. We get the questions from there. We put them on the paper right here. And then we come live right now to give you all our answers. A last word?
Well, how can I follow after that?
Well, the last word of the day is going to be clock. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
See you next week. Bye-bye.